What's up everyone, my name is Biku and I am here with a review and unboxing of the Sennheiser, however you want to say it, Momentum True Wireless 2. Now, I want to start this off by saying I had a pair of the Momentum True Wireless ones, and for the most part, they were resorted to a decorative ornament, basically. And that is because of one very big flaw with the first version that these ones have fixed. Now, the first ones were basically perfect, apart from two very big drawbacks that made them basically unusable, actually. And that being, okay, so they weren't basically perfect, but anyway. So those two drawbacks were the touch button, or the touch controls on the side of the earphones, and number two, battery life. These ones have fixed all of the issues that I had with the first ones, and these are basically perfect. So let's start this off by opening them up. As you can see, packaging very similar to the first generation. Some lovely sugar. Earphones are arranged nicely. All of your documentation and everything is right here. I have been using these for a little while, so I have been digging into all of the goodies that come with it. It comes with 4 different sizes of ear tips, as far as I can tell. Yeah, 4 different sizes of ear tips, including the one that comes with it. Comes with all of your documentation. It does come with a USB Type-C cable, although I don't have that here with me. Welcome. So, now for the earphones themselves. For the most part, they're very similar to the first generation. They're a little bit wider and thicker in terms of how far they go into your ears. They do have the same design for how they do go into your ears. It's more of like your typical in-ear style of earphones, where they kind of twist into your ears and they lock in very well. Overall, I've had no issues in terms of how these sit in my ears. The design of these is a little bit different than what I think most people are used to having. These twist into your ears like a corkscrew almost, and they lock in very well and they isolate sound very well. The only thing is they tend to be a little bit annoying the first, I'd say, 3 or 4 days that you're wearing these, because you need to give your ears time to adjust to wearing these. I had a similar issue with my old Sennheiser IE60s, which are very similar to these in how they go into your ears. And it took a couple days for me to get used to them being in my ears, but after that, they felt perfect and natural. Even the first generation, very similar. That's the earphones themselves. You can see they're pretty nice. They sit in your ears pretty well. And now for the charging case. I'm not too sure if the first generation had this really nice, almost gray gunmetal kind of look it's like a fabric. I'm not too sure if the first generation had that or if they only had the silver, but that is this color. It's got a button on the back as well as your USB Type-C port. The button on your back, I believe how it works is when they're out, the button tells you the battery life of the case, and when they're in, the button tells you the battery life of the earphones themselves. Battery life on the box says, if I can find it, on the box, battery life here is stated as 7 plus 21 hours. What that means is you'll get 7 hours of listening out of the earphones, and then you can charge them through the case 3 times. The first generation, I believe, had a similar, if not slightly lower rated battery life. However, the first ones, if any one of you bought the first ones, you should feel really pissed off at Sennheiser for these, because the first ones had their biggest flaw of battery drain. The first ones, if you charge them up fully and you listen to them after you unplug them, you listen to them for 2 hours, whatever. Put them back in the case overnight, come back the next day, dead. That was a killing. That was the final foot in the coffin of the first ones for me. They were unusable because of that. I couldn't just charge them up, listen to them, put them in my bag or my pocket, next day pick them back up, use them again. I couldn't do that. I had to, if you don't charge them every single night, basically, they were useless. So they were a decorative ornament to me, basically. They did sound brilliant though, and these also sound absolutely brilliant. But the issues with the first ones were just too much and they were unusable for me, even though they sounded so damn good. These, in my testing, battery life is as claimed. I got through 2 weeks of on and off listening with these totaling probably pretty close to that 28-hour total listening time. And that's with me using them and my girlfriend using them on and off for about two or even 3 weeks straight. The battery life on these is actually very remarkable. The case itself is pretty bulky, but it's small enough that it's not really an issue. The earphones themselves, like I said, fit into your ears very, very comfortably. Now, in terms of features, these improve upon the first generation in everything really except sound quality. And that's not a bad thing, because the sound quality on the first generation was excellent. And the sound quality on these, absolutely excellent. Very, very clear highs and mids, very deep and thumpy bass. It really is very impressive what Sennheiser has managed to pack into this. And then the other issue that I had with the first generation is the touch controls. The touch controls on the first generation were horrible. Now these actual touch controls themselves are slightly better, but not much better. But the biggest issue with the touch controls on the first generation is you couldn't, to my knowledge, customize them. You couldn't change, and each one of these has, as far as I am aware, possibility of doing single tap, double tap, triple tap, and tap and hold. On the first generation, and that's different for each one. So you can have a lot of different functions on each one of these to do just about everything you want. On the first generation, on your right ear tip, you tapped it once, and this is what broke these things for me, other than the battery life. You tapped it once and it brought up voice assistants. Now, I'm sure some people out there do like Siri and Google popping up in your ears every now and then, but personally, I really don't like it. I do not like voice assistants, at least how they are currently, and I specifically don't want to just randomly activate them if I ever want to. Let's say, for instance, what is hidden on the same ear tip behind a double tap is the pass-through feature. Now, what the pass-through feature does is it passes through sounds that it's hearing outside through its microphone to you. And on the first generation, it was great, but the thing is, when you want to do that, you typically, most of the time, want to have it done quickly because someone is coming up to you to talk to you, or you want to hear something that's happening. But having to double tap on these little pads when you can't see them in your ears, it's a nightmare. I hated doing it. The feature worked well, but the execution wasn't the greatest. Now with these, through Sennheiser's app, you can configure what each tap does. So you can actually completely get rid of a voice assistant as an option on any of the taps and put that very important feature that I like so much, the pass-through feature, right on the first tap. That means, and it's still not great, sometimes it takes a little bit of luck to actually hit it without touching your face and getting yourself lined up, but that makes it so that you can, instead of having the really annoying double tap to get it done, you can do it in a single tap and it's done, and you don't ever have to worry about Siri or Hey Google popping up in your ears when you really don't want them to. Now, in terms of Sennheiser's app, as I just mentioned, a lot of people had issues in the beginning, as far as I understand, with the equalizer that Sennheiser had. It was this weird cloud-looking thing that is very vague as to what it does. But now they have added a more traditional equalizer, and I typically don't play around too much with the EQ settings, but just bumping up that bass a little bit is nice sometimes, and it does make it pretty easy now. It also makes changing between all of the different options of the earphones pretty easy. One thing that is a little bit confusing is you can change what settings are by default or are on by default, and one of the ones that they've oddly chosen to turn on by default is noise cancellation. Now, noise cancellation will definitely deteriorate your battery life on these. And it's strange to me that they would prefer to have that on by default. And so the noise cancellation on these is relatively good, but not as good as something like Sennheiser's bigger headsets. Their HD 450 BT/NC noise cancelling ones, or their PC or MB66 or 660 headphones. Those have very, very good noise cancelling. These are good and very, very good at single sound, like continuous frequency sounds like an aircon or a plane or something like that. They're very good with that. However, they just can't compete in terms of like a person's voice. That still comes through pretty prominently, almost like they weren't even on. But I'm grateful that they can cancel out that background hum very nicely. So, sound quality. Like I've said before, these have truly, truly excellent sound quality. I've used a lot of Sennheiser's products, and these really are at the top of the top of the top. Not quite on the same level as their HD series of headphones, obviously, but these are Bluetooth in-ears. But still, for the size and for the battery life that you actually get, which is actually very impressive on these, the sound quality that you get out of these is phenomenal. It honestly is. And that really hasn't changed that much from the first generation, which brings me to why I am kind of upset at Sennheiser about these. Sennheiser has played around with wireless in-ear earphones for 3 or 4 years now. And they started out with a weird neckband thing that the earphones are connected to, and then they went to two earphones that just are connected with a single string or the single cord. Then they did the first generation of these, which were so good, but also so terrible because of that battery life. And now we've come to these. And honestly, if you've bought any of the previous generations, the neckband one and the one that are connected with a cord, they do sound good. They are still very good sounding, but they're lacking something, and that is where these come in. And I honestly think that Sennheiser should have waited for them to actually get the technology and the features and any bugs ironed out, and they should have released these first, because now you have a lot of customers that don't and aren't having very good experiences, even though they spent a lot of money on those. And now you've released these, and these are amazing. These honestly are amazing, and I love them, and these are probably going to be my daily drivers for the foreseeable future. However, if you've bought any of the ones before these, you will be very upset that Sennheiser waited so long before they actually made something that is basically, as I've used them, these are basically perfect. I really don't have any issues with these. The only issues that I do have currently is that the touch controls on these are still not very good. However, because they have allowed you and given you the option to change what each touch control does, means you can go most of the time using these without ever needing to actually do anything more than a single tap. And doing anything more than a single tap is, honestly, it's terrible. It's a terrible experience, but you can get around that. That would probably be my only issue that I still currently have with these. But at least it's not as big of an issue. And the biggest issue, which was battery life from the previous version, is completely gone. Obviously, let's see how that stands up over time. But yeah, these are very good, and I would recommend them. They are very expensive. I believe they're over $350, something like that. I could be mistaken, but these are very expensive earphones. There really isn't anything that compares in terms of just pure sound quality. Sennheiser really does give some of the best sound quality in the business, and yeah, nothing really compares to these to me anyway. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye bye.